Hello, my amazing artists. Welcome back to Art with Mrs. Knowles. And we're going to be creating a really fun project today. We are going to be making a texture sandwich today. Here is my texture sandwich. As you can see, it's a really big sandwich, isn't it? I guess it's kind of a burger because I got a burger bun, but so texture is one of our 7 elements of art, right? We've got line and shape and color. Those are also elements of art because they're like the building blocks of art. So texture is one of those building blocks. And there's 2 different kinds of texture. There's texture that is actual texture, like that's texture that you can feel. So for example, when I touch my hair feels kind of bumpy. Or when I touch my shirt, what does your shirt feel like when you touch it? Does it feel soft? Does it feel, maybe your shirt has little bumps on it, mine doesn't really. So that's actual texture or real texture because you can touch it and feel it. So the other kind of texture is called implied texture. And implied texture is when something looks like it feels. So this is an example. I used a crayon and I made a texture rubbing. So when you look at this, it probably looks bumpy, right? And that's implied texture. But when I touch it, it doesn't feel bumpy. It just looks bumpy. So that's texture that you can see, but you can't necessarily feel it. So I'm going to show you a close-up of my sandwich so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to show you how I did it. But all of our sandwiches are going to look different depending on the texture that we choose. All right, you ready? Alrighty, now you can see my sandwich a little bit closer and you can see all of the different textures that I used, and I'll explain those to you in just a moment. But what you need to do first before you get started is you're gonna have to go to your kitchen or just like take a trip around the house to find some different textures. So when I went to the kitchen, I found some pasta noodles. That's kind of funny, right? Some oats, like oatmeal, some rice, some sea salt, and some chia seeds. So all of these I used, these are really fun to touch. All of these I used in my sandwich. So these are actual textures, right? I can touch them and they feel like the object. Now I also used some implied textures. One of them that I used was this piece of pizza here. Because you know, you can add pizza to your sandwich, right? It looks like a pizza. It looks nice and juicy, like you're gonna eat it. I found these pictures of sushi here, so I cut those out. And they look like the rice looks real, doesn't it? Now what else? Oh, and on my burger, do you see the little patty right there? So I found a brown piece of paper in a magazine that looked to me kind of like meat, sort of. So I cut that out for my meat. So those are some examples of my implied texture. So it's when something looks like the texture. And then I added the oatmeal on the top of my bun. I put the salt right there. I don't know what the salt is. Mayonnaise? Could be mayo. I put my pasta noodles right there. I found some bubble wrap. So I colored it green behind the bubble wrap and then I added that on top. There's my rice. What else? Chia seeds. I had this funky paper towel and I was like, ooh, that's cool. So I added that. I added a piece of cheese and stuck some holes in it like Swiss cheese. So basically you want to find texture that you just have around your house. It could be things like this in your kitchen. It could be pictures out of magazines. It could even be, I'm going to use some cardboard. So lots of different things. I saved this little piece of, what is this called? Bubble wrap. I saved it because I was like, oh, I bet I could use that in a project. And I did. So here, all of our sandwiches are gonna look different, right? But the basic way to start is you need something to glue everything onto, right? So I just cut a piece of paper. I wanted my sandwich to be kind of tall and skinny, so that's why I cut my paper like that. And then, let's see, I got my cardboard And I'm actually going to use the cardboard on the side. And I use this for my buns. So for the top and bottom of my buns, this is what I use. So I'm just going to do like a curved, like a rainbow shape. Will that fit? It just fits, oh my gosh. And then the bottom bun is usually a little smaller. Will that fit? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to glue these to the top and the bottom. I'm just using Elmer's glue. If you don't have Elmer's glue, not a big deal. You can use something else. Although for some of your textures, this white glue is going to work better because like rice and pasta are going to have a hard time sticking to just a glue stick. Okay, and then I'm going to glue this part to the bottom. All right, now I've got my top and my bottom, so I can start building my sandwich in between, right? So now is the time for you to get creative and start adding all those layers. Now all of our layers are going to be different, right? Because we're all using different things. Now if you're trying to get something like, for example, rice to stick, you're gonna need a liquid glue like this. And you're gonna just sort of almost paint your glue on where you want the rice to go. And then what I did was I sprinkled my rice and I just let it dry. So I just let it sit there for a couple hours. And then once it was dry, I just picked it up and shook off the extra rice and was, careful to throw that rice away. Now, make sure that you ask your parents before you take things from the kitchen, right? You don't want to use some rice that they're going to use for dinner. That would be awful. So make sure you ask permission before you take it. And I think that's all I have to tell you because all of our sandwiches are going to have different textures and they're going to look different. So I am really excited to see what your sandwich looks like. You guys ready? All right, let's make some art. See you later.